Good morning, good evening, namaste, hola, bonjour, keremed, terve, and maravan. This is Namya Joshi, your host for the day. Welcome to episode 90 of the podcast, Each One Teach 10, An Amazing World of STEM, an inspiring venture where we'll be discussing that STEM is part of every day for every kid. We all will learn together how to build a STEM culture. Well, for today, I don't just have one guest, I have two. Here we go. David Hotler and Katie Fielding. How are you doing today, both of you?
Doing great.
Hello.
So glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
pleasure.
It's an absolute honor. Thank you.
Yeah, it's an honor and a pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. So David Hotler has 15 years of experience in education as a teacher, coach, and consultant in North America and Europe. His mission is to build and empower communities of educators who are passionate about teaching with Book Creator. And Katie Fielding is an educational consultant with 20 years of public school experience. She champions digital accessibility, creativity, and universal design for learning in classrooms. And she also creates interdisciplinary instruction experiences and shares her expertise through presentations and workshops. Currently, she is the educational consultant and content manager at Book Creator. Outside work, she enjoys cheese and exploring Scandinavia. So I'm really, really happy to have you both here today. So before we begin, how's the weather there at your end?
For me, it's great. It's a little warm. I'm in Madrid, Spain, and we're just starting to peek into maybe some fall weather, but it's still pretty warm.
The weather here, right outside Washington, D.C., is finally amazing. So we survived the heat of July and August, and it's finally taking a little dip into being able to be outside. So that's nice.
Yeah,
That's
same.
glad to know. I can relate because here in where I'm in North India, it's kind of similar because it was raining heavily for the past 3 days, and yesterday it was sunny again, and then today it's back to raining. So even though it's raining, the weather is quite cool. So you can, stroll in the garden with your family and not just, sit in the scorching heat.
Yes, so nice.
Right. Okay, so let's get started. I'm really excited for today's conversation. So my first question is for Katie. So you've had an impressive journey from a public school educator to an educational consultant and content creator. What inspired you to transition into educational technology, and how did your passion for digital accessibility and UDL shape this path?
Yeah. So first of all, I love teaching. It wasn't definitely for me about leaving teaching or leaving education. I just had this kind of miracle happen to me that not many people get to experience medically. So I was born with a genetic disease called cystic fibrosis. And about 4 years ago, a miracle medical treatment came out. So biotech has completely made my life possible. First of all, when I was born, I wasn't supposed to live past 12. But 4 years ago, when this medicine came out, my life completely changed. My health completely changed. And so the cystic fibrosis community has really benefited from this medicine, and therefore I have too. But that's really what led me to kind of transition from education, which in America and the States is a very stable and safe career. So it's a great place for someone with a disability to be, because the risks and the protections for the disabled class are pretty strong in the public education world. So now that I am healthier, I had some mobility to try something new. And so that's what really led me to transitioning to ed tech. And Book Creator is a great company that I've used for a long time in my classroom, and then as a tech coach supporting teachers using. And so it was just a really great opportunity when it came up to try it. And so far it's been great. And ultimately I get a lot of satisfaction because Book Creator is so good for our special education students with accessibility and our English lingual or emerging multilingual students. And those are just passion areas of mine as someone with a disability, in making sure that there are no barriers for like any kids in the classroom. And that's where a lot of my work before Book Creator kind of came about, and like my presentation space is talking about accessibility. So the two kind of just meet up really nicely.
That is really, really great to know. Absolutely. Like you said, you have a love for teaching. And absolutely, when you're talking about, your journey from a public school educator to an education consultant is truly inspiring, like coupled with a life-changing experience involving a genetic disease and a biotech miracle that helped you and fueled your transition into education technology. And this passion for, digital accessibility and UDL, along with Book Creator, like you said, you've used it for classroom teaching and also for supporting the teachers so that you can, cater to their diverse needs and create an inclusive environment where students face no barriers to learning. And of course, teachers can step out of their comfort zones to learn something new so they can help their students as well. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Right. So, David, you've had a diverse career spanning 15 years across North America and Europe as a teacher, coach, and consultant. So, what inspired you to pursue a career in education, and how do your experiences in different regions shape your teaching philosophy?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Namya. Thank you so much. Didn't know when I was a young kid what I wanted to do with my life. In fact, got all the way up to essentially the edge of secondary school, my high school education, and really had no plan moving forward, and was spending a lot of time in art classrooms. So I was taking art classes, but was really enjoying art. I was doing a Saturday art program, would volunteer at a youth program doing a lot of art, and was just really inspired by creation. And so my art teacher at the time said, why don't you go to art school? Like, why don't you go pursue this passion? And so I did. I went into a design program that was more technology focused than art focused. So it was more on how to make money designing and creating. So I was kind of on track to become a graphic designer, a web developer. And I got into the first year of it, and I hated it. I thought it would be awful to have to sell the things that I create or to make a living solely based on that, because what I started to realize was it was more of a passion for me, the creation aspect, working with digital tools, taking pictures, making videos. That was always the passion piece. But I realized that I didn't really want to take that passion and apply it directly to making money. It felt like it devalued the satisfaction that I got out of it. So I kind of ended my freshman year in university feeling a little bit down, but had signed up to be a summer camp counselor, where I had gone to summer camp growing up as a kid. And becoming a camp counselor made me realize that, man, I really like working with the youth, right? I like working with high school age students, middle school age students. I love their passion. I love how curious they are. And I loved how much they loved my passion for the things that I was excited about. And so in that whole summer, my outlook sort of changed on how do I want to spend my life and who do I want to spend it with? And what I realized was, man, teaching is a great option. And so it turns out that actually teaching into my passion was what fueled the rest of my university. So I went back, I talked to my advisor, and I switched my major. Instead of being sort of tech focused in the design world, I became tech focused in the education world. And so all my credits transferred. It was perfect. And I started going into technology education. And so that just propelled me into the education space, which I found very homey. Katie said at the beginning, it's a very safe, secure space to be. There's lots of jobs, lots of places to go. And so I pursued that passion, and then really started to learn a lot about students. And so in my time teaching in Virginia, I was in a school district that had a lot of kids that were in need. And so I saw a part of the world I'd never grown up in. And I worked with students that weren't students that I grew up with, right? And so it was a whole mind-opening experience to me to realize that, wow, I am like massively privileged, like way more privileged than I deserve. And so there was a bit of a service component of thinking, education is a great way to give back, and it's a great way to improve the strength of your nation, your community, and the people around you. And when I transitioned to teaching in a private school in where I live now in Madrid, Spain, I saw the other end of that spectrum. But what I came to realize is that kids are all the same. They all have really similar problems. They all have really similar passions and ideas and ways about going things. And then they're also really different. And I think that's really informed my teaching philosophy because, it's not about teaching subjects and it's not about teaching stuff. It's about teaching people and teaching into your passions and really bringing that to the front. And so that's a bit of a long-winded answer, but that's kind of what got me here today. And so I'm really proud to be now working as the community manager at Book Creator, because I get to work with teachers who are working with such diverse students, and I get to support such a diverse group of individuals that, it's just, again, back into my passion of building community and working with people.
Truly, I mean, your journey into education is a testament to following one's true calling. Like, initially inspired by your passion for creation during art classes, you pursued a design program with the intent that maybe you could become a designer or a web developer. However, you realized that turning your passion into the profession, they value the satisfaction it brought to you. And your experience as a camp counselor sparked the new passion, like you said, working with the youth. And the revelation led you to switch your major to tech education, where you found fulfillment in creating a safe and secure spaces for different students. And I really like the point that you mentioned. It's not about teaching subjects, it's about teaching people and shaping their lives. And it's just making sure that you're giving your deep-seated commitment to education to shape lives of different students who can become better and stronger individuals in the future. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, what's funny too, and sorry to cut back in, a friend of mine, I recently told that story to a friend of mine, and they said, well, isn't it kind of funny that you started out wanting to go be some kind of designer in a marketing department, and it's come all the way back around that now you kind of work in the marketing department. And so you kind of took the long way to get to where you thought you wanted to be, but there was just so much more to that journey than reaching the destination.
Absolutely. Like, shortcuts aren't always the best. I think it's the journey that matters, like you said, rather than the destination that you have to reach to. Thank you. All right. So my next question again for you, David, is, in your experience, how does integrating and creating creativity with technology, particularly through tools like Book Creator, enhance student engagement and learning outcomes? And also, if you could provide examples on how teachers can use Book Creator to foster creativity in their classrooms.
Absolutely. Well, one of my favorite quotes, and I don't know who to attribute it to, so maybe in the show notes we can add this in, but constraints breed creativity. And what I found when I was working in the classroom was that if you put too many constraints on something, it stifles creativity. But if you don't have any constraints, you kind of get this, where do I start look? But we know that creativity is so important because of some of the research that's been done by John Hattie and Associates. So they did a massive meta-study, and a meta-study is when you study other studies. And they studied over 1,200 research studies looking for examples of creativity in education and how they have provided students with an option to improve their learning outcomes. And so when you give students the constraints of creating something original to elaborate their responses, but you don't put so many constraints on it that they can voice how they know what they know in whatever avenue that they want. Multimodal is what we call it at Book Creator, but I can make a video, I can record my voice, I can add text and images. And it turns out that when we start to give students a little bit more freedom, but we still put some guardrails on the edge, their creativity flourishes, and then so does the learning outcome. So you can see that if you're just looking at scores, you could see the scores go up the more we add these creative constraints to a lesson. And so it was a really awesome study because John Hattie, again, that meta study is looking at lots of studies. And each one of those little studies might not have shown that profound impact, but when you put them all together, you start to see this much bigger picture around the world. And so when you start to talk about a little bit of what we can do as teachers in the classroom with Book Creator, Book Creator is a very open blank canvas, right? When you start, you can start with just a white page and just run with it. And we've filled it up with a bunch of different tools that let you express yourself however you want. But we also have lots of page templates. We also have places where we can add those little edges to the page, so to speak, and give someone enough constraints that they understand the task, but enough room that they can show what they want to show in the creative way that makes them sing. So a great example of that is that we've seen people create like escape room style books for students. We see lots of video response templates. So a lot of times teachers will want to post a video or an article or something and sort of provoke their students to think out loud. And we know that, a lot of students will really respond well to just a monologue style video. And so we'll see these page templates where the teacher will sort of post a topic and then have spaces for each student to sort of put in their thoughts, and then students can reply to each other and really have this dynamic conversation in the classroom. We also have a whole bunch of comic book templates. We've got tons of styles and things, but not so many that it takes away from the choosing aspect. You don't get what do they call choice paralysis, where you're going through too many styles and things. And so we kind of feel like we have that bit of a magic mix with Book Creator. There's enough there to support the learning and keep the technology from getting in the way. But there's also not so much there that we aren't still a tool that can be used for creative expression. And we don't take away creative expression. So, and Katie, please do add to that. Katie's brilliant. So I would love to hear her.
No, I think you really hit a lot of things. Yeah, I love that Book Creator is just open-ended creation. So students can start with a blank page if they want, or if the teacher knows their students and knows that as like a support, like a template would be really helpful, they can add those in for their students. So I just love that it can be really curated to what the student needs, and that teacher is going to know more than anyone what the student needs, and Book Creator can really support them in giving and implementing the great variability that's in their classroom. Because I don't know, what classrooms are like in Northern India, but in America, you can have up to 40 kids in a classroom, and it's a wide variety of abilities, and that also is 40 different points of engagement. Like every kid's interested in different things. And so when you give kids an open creation platform, they can tap into those interests of themselves and connect with the content or connect with the learning standards in that way. So that's one of the reasons I really just love Book Creator.
Namya, one of the lagging indicators to me that Book Creator is a tool that both speaks to students and also engages them is that oftentimes we'll have teachers say they only ran one project for Book Creator this year, right? They had that one thing, they used it for that, they loved it. But then they looked back and found that the students were still making books, not for class, not for any assignments, they just wanted to make stuff. And to me, that says that the tool is open, it's accessible, it's fun to use, but then also too that it's a space where creativity is fostered and grows.
Absolutely. I totally agree with both of your thoughts. Thank you so much for sharing them. And why I can relate so much is the first time I used Book Creator was back during the COVID-19 lockdown. And there was I think I was in grade 8. Yeah, I think grade 8. So we were given this competition. No, I used it before, but then I actually made a proper full-fledged book during that competition. So it was regarding waste management. So we had to use the Sustainable Development Goals to create any book that we want. So me being passionate about SDG 4, I took up that, and of course, Life on Land. And then I combined them both and I created this book on waste management. So I remember creating a comic strip story with my hand. In grade 4, it was called Superhero in Zorba. So she was there helping out children and all to make sure that they're not, using plastic bags, using proper disposable bottles, using jute bags. So I framed that entire story into Book Creator, adding my own elements, and then I won the first prize. So that was the first time I made a proper story in it. And then I started creating more and more stories. So that was not just for, let's say, for the competitions or for creating my professional resources, but also for the fun element to add more stories to it. So I was enjoying it at the same time, and that's wherein I relate a lot there. Because it's just, like you said, constraints breed creativity. And when students are given creative boundaries, they are encouraged to think more deeply and innovatively. So like a versatile platform like Book Creator can allow them where their creativity can flourish. They can engage more deeply with the material available, and it allows them to think out loud. And at the same time, they have different perspectives in the classroom. So when all of them work together in teams, they can have different ideas coming together and then creating something that is out of the world. So again, dynamic learning environment is what I think it leads to.
Yeah.
With my personal experience.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Thank you. All right. So, Katie, how can tools like Book Creator be leveraged to design such experiences? And what role do you see it playing in the future of STEM education?
Yeah, so I am really passionate about STEM education. My undergrad, so I was a biology major. I studied biology, and then I became a biology teacher, and I did that for 13 years before kind of moving to becoming a tech coach. So I love STEM, and I think it's really empowering for a lot of students. I know it was for me. As I mentioned, like I had CF, I was what my dad called an indoor girl. Like I didn't have like a great physicality, right? So my like expertise is like brains, academics, and STEM is really where I felt at home. And so I was really fortunate. My dad's an engineer, and so I kind of had that home space that fostered that development of my STEM love, right? But not every kid has that. And not because their parents don't necessarily want them to, but they just maybe don't have that experience themselves. And so I think giving students STEM experiences at school is really important. And then along with that, I think making sure those STEM experiences are accessible to all students, those with disabilities, learning disabilities, neurodivergent students, multilingual learners, so we don't have language barriers in the learning, is really important. And that's where I think when you develop content in Book Creator, it really can help remove a lot of those barriers. So I made a whole series of STEM notebooks, and I'm sure we'll put those like in the show notes or a comment somewhere with Book Creator to lead students through and helps teachers as well go through the engineering or the design thinking process or the 5E model of science instruction, which is prominent here in the States. That's where you engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and then evaluate through that whole process. So leading teachers and students through that process in an open-ended creation space. So giving teachers a space to present that engage information where they're pulling students in with activities, maybe a demo, a demonstration of a scientific phenomena, and then having students explore that phenomena on their own a bit. And then finally, in the explain phase, actually the third phase, teachers start introducing the words of science and start actually explaining what they saw in the engage and the explore phase. So we're really removing the barriers by those first two phases, not having any words, no science words yet associated with it, so that all students are multilingual students, maybe our newcomer multilingual students who don't speak any English yet, they can still look at that scientific phenomena and in their brains see what's going on and make their own connections before they have to connect it with some words. So, and then after the explain phase, students go back to the inquiry process and develop usually an experiment to go deeper into that topic. So I created these notebooks using Book Creator for students and teachers to go through that design thinking, engineering, scientific process on their own with any topic that they want to explore, which again, giving students and teachers the openness of choosing the topic or the problem that they want to solve is really powerful. So I think that creating and making these spaces for students to do and document their scientific and engineering thinking is really important. Traditionally, we've seen that kind of thinking done in a paper notebook. But that paper notebook of, keeping your notes and keeping your graphs and keeping your data still keeps a lot of students out. Students who may have handwriting issues, students that may just do better from speaking to talking into their computer and having the text on the page that way. By making a notebook very similar something to you were doing on paper, just digital, removes barriers for so many students. Then, they can also have that documentation that they made read aloud back to them, because students may have, a reading disability, and they may need support in having the information read to them. So again, just making it more accessible to more students is so important, because we know STEM in the US has traditionally been historically a very gate-kept discipline, very much keeping out Black and Hispanic students due to some of these barriers, systemic barriers that have been built. So I just really firmly believe in breaking down these barriers and letting STEM be accessible to all students, because we know from looking at, I actually also have a master's degree in science technology studies. So I've looked at these issues, and that whole discipline looks at science from the outside and examines scientists from a sociological perspective. So we know that when you have more diverse people in a lab, you get better results. And so if we can make sure that we're developing more STEM practitioners at a young age from all different kinds of backgrounds with all different kinds of life experiences, we're going to get better stuff in the future. We're going to get really cool biotech. We're going to get really cool computer science innovations, because people had different experiences growing up, and they're going to bring that into their work. And the more that we can have a lot of different ideas going on, just the better it is. So that's what gets me excited about STEM, and that's what gets me excited about making STEM more accessible. And I think that tools like Book Creator are just one way that we can help make that more accessible to students.
Absolutely. The more the merrier. And then, of course, when you have more diverse people, there are diverse thoughts. And then that leads to different people sharing their ideas, leading to best solutions again. And I really like the way you highlighted the importance of ensuring every student has the opportunity to experience STEM regardless of their background. And tools like Book Creator play a very strong role in this by allowing the educators and students to design content that is accessible and engaging for all of them around. So with Book Creator, like you said, you've created different notebooks that incorporates the 5E model and, of course, tailored to STEM education. So this approach not only removes barriers, but also makes learning more interactive. For instance, like you said, students can use digital notebooks within Book Creator, document their explorations, reflect on their findings, and have Book Creator read it out for them. So if they have some disabilities, or they're not able to read it properly, so they'll be able to listen it. Of course, like you said, the importance of accessibility has to be the key, wherein by using such engaging tools and by integrating them in the classroom, educators can foster deeper understanding of STEM concepts, so making the learning process more creative and inclusive. Thank you for sharing.
And can I just want to tag onto that really quickly, because Katie said, a lot of times it's in a notebook, and that holds back some students, but a notebook doesn't hold back other students, right? And so we're not advocating for you not to use your notebook, but when you add Book Creator to the lesson, it's the fastest, easiest way to add the most accessible mode of representation, right? When we look at universal design for learning, we need to give multiple means of representation to our students so that they can express what they know in the way they feel most comfortable. For some students, that's going to continue to be a paper notebook. That's awesome. For the rest of our students, we can really easily add a digital notebook that has lots of multiple means of accessible ways of representing what you know, that doesn't have a million buttons and tabs and things like that. Mm-hmm. And so that's Katie gets me excited about STEM. And that's what I get to say. So I just wanted to tag that on.
Absolutely, because I think creating hand notes does get boring sometimes. It's just like one ink and then you're reading it all over again and again. But when you have different colors, because like I think people love learning visually, and visual learning always helps you to remember the things. If you're creating notes online and then you come and reflect it back again, you'll be able to remember that, yeah, I use this particular sticker, and then I can, remember it during the examination as well. And of course, making digital notes is handy at the same time, more interesting and engaging at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay, so on a lighter note, Katie, you have a known passion for cheese and a love for exploring Scandinavia. How do these personal interests influence your professional life, if at all? And do you find any parallels between your hobbies and your work in education?
Ooh, that's a really good question. So cheese. There is a huge variety of cheese. I literally moved to the neighborhood that I live in because there's an amazing cheese shop. And I have done many a cheese tasting class there. And people say they don't like cheese. I am like, you have not met the right cheese, because there is a cheese for you. But I think in that way, if I want to connect like that experience to my work experience, in the same way that there is a plethora and many, many cheeses, right? There are also many ways that, as many diverse students that you're going to experience, right? So we need to make things as open for them as possible, make multiple ways that they can get engaged and have fun in school. And so really thinking about like, okay, there's a cheese for everyone. There is a class activity for everyone, and trying to make your class activities as open to all students as possible is really important. Now, Scandinavia, have you been?
I've heard about it though. It's like maybe a very pretty place, but I really love to visit.
Pretty but rainy.
Yep.
So I love a rainy spot. But also it's just very organized and clean. So they're very organized people, which I find a kinship to. And so, yeah, I think that probably taps into my work life and my professional life, is that like those like organization pieces I like implement in my work files, right? My work files are, David is like, oh yes, our work files are organized. I implement that kind of structure and organizational piece like into my professional work in that way. Yeah, I think that their order is just something I like. Not to say that I've gone places that are like less ordered and I've not liked them. I definitely have. I've had great places that I visited that are more organic, flowing, right?
Yep.
But I think I definitely just do tap into the organization of things.
Absolutely. Look, I've been thrice to Finland, but it's not, too rainy there. It's more of the snow. So I've been there like once during the winters and twice during the summers, and I've missed Northern Lights all 3 times. Of course, not during summer, it's not possible. But like I would relate regarding the organizational part. People are always like, when they have to work, they're there to work, and when they have to enjoy themselves, they know that this is their enjoying time. So they'll not mix up both things together, and they'll do their 100% in the task that they're putting focus upon. And then when they're done, they're all like good to relax themselves. So I think that is something that all individuals should learn, that we need to have that work-life balance, that when you're working, you have your entire focus on doing that, and when you're relaxing, that there's just one thing in the world to sit beneath the sunlight, read your book, and enjoy it with your family. So
this
that's
is
something
an
that
area of growth for me. I'm working on this one.
Absolutely.
I'm not good about the separating.
I would agree with the cheese,
trying to be better,
because I'm a cheese lover as well. So if there's somebody that tells me that I don't like cheese, I think you need to try it once again, because cheese is the best.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, anyone who thinks that needs to meet my cheesemonger. They're perfect. That's great.
All right. David, I want to ask you, which is your favorite sport?
Oh boy, my favorite sport. I really enjoy going to like a baseball game I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, where we don't have a professional American football team, but we have a very popular university football team. And so I've followed them sort of my whole life, just through kind of osmosis of fanhood. But, it's not technically a sport, but it kind of is a sport. I've been really into CrossFit for about a decade now.
That's nice.
And there's actually a decent crossover there with education, because for a while in Virginia, I was coaching CrossFit, and I learned a lot about the methodology. And a lot of people think that CrossFit is really hard and super intense, and it's only for really fit people. But the methodology actually shows us that it's infinitely scalable. And so if someone in my class who's, older or less fit is right next to someone who is, a premier athlete, you should be able to change the workout in such a way that both those athletes finish at the same time. They have the same look of like, oh, it's hard on their face, right? And they both feel like they got to work out. And I like to think that should apply in the classroom as well. Our curriculums, when you look at like the NGSS science curriculum, it's got that vertical spiral alignment. And so it's sort of infinitely getting harder and harder and harder, but it can get infinitely easier and easier and easier. And so there should always be a place for our students within the curriculum and in our classroom. And again, going back to that multiple means of representation and multiple means of ways to approach content, we as teachers should be making things sort of infinitely scalable, so that really it's about the progress that a student makes and not necessarily about the mark that they get to, right?
True. I relate to that because, like, if let's say you're getting the dumbbells and you're working out in the morning. So if you're able to, move from 15 to 20 or the next day 20 to 30, you'll be able to, realize that you've done a lot of progress. So it's like, again, like you said, not about reaching the peak or the destination, it's about the journey, and you're getting the transformational journey as well. So you'll learn a lot at the same time, get inspired by people. And then, of course, you'll see yourself getting better and stronger physically and mentally day by day. Thank you. So it was like nice asking you both some fun questions. All right.
Yeah, I like that.
Amazing. So David, what are some common challenges educators face when integrating book creator into their classrooms? And how do you help them overcome these obstacles? And of course, Katie, I would love to have your view of this as well.
So we're not unique from any other ed tech software or tool in that every teacher is going to say at the top of their list, the first thing that they don't have enough of is time. We know that all teachers are overworked all around the world. It's a really hard profession. And so we're constantly looking for ways to save teachers time. Again, Katie's STEM notebooks is a perfect example of that, because she put all of her knowledge to masters, into these notebooks. And just try to get you from point A to point F a lot quicker so that you can get that into the hands of your students. So we're always looking for ways to save teachers time. We're also here a lot of times that it's a new tool to them, right? They don't have the time to learn the tool. And then when they start learning new tools, they have sort of a track history of not succeeding as the way they wanted, because they get dug in and they're like, oh my gosh, there's like a million little things. I got to learn all these switches and buttons and clicks. And so we intentionally make our tool and design our tool for the students and at the edge of the classroom, the ones that are going to need the most supports in using it, because if you could do it for them, it's just good for everyone, including teachers, when it comes to understanding the tool, because a teacher needs to understand a tech tool so that when they look at a student's screen, they know if they're doing what they should be doing or they're doing something they shouldn't be doing. And that kind of requires you to understand what's going on. You can't just assign something and not have an understanding of the ecosystem of that software. So we also run lots of really short getting started webinars. We have very short informational videos for teachers and that sort of thing. Another thing that we hear is that oftentimes our tool is just for little kids. They're not really for that secondary level. And again, Katie's STEM notebooks, perfect example of how you should be using this in the middle school, upper school, that secondary space, because again, it's a simple tool. It doesn't need to be flashy in order for you to show what you know. And in fact, I created my professional portfolio using Book Creator, and I think it looks pretty fantastic. And I'm not a professional designer, and I'm an old man. So, but yeah, we also try and just help teachers get over the anxiety of starting something new by giving them pre-made lesson designs or ideas that they can use in their classroom. We also have some really easy, low-risk things that you can use with your students in class, because there's not only do the teachers need to upskill on the tech, but the students do too. And we never want the technology to get in the way of the learning. And so if a teacher assigns a technology and say, use this technology to show me what you know, and the student spends all their time just trying to learn the technology, they don't ever get to the part where they show what they know, or when they finally do, it's less impactful. And so we have lots of different lessons and ideas that allow you to introduce the tool to the students and yourself. They have a low risk assignment of getting to know the software, and also you, part of that is getting to know them. And then later when you go to assign that tool down the road, it's not unreasonable to expect a student to show what they know in a capacitated time. But again, it only takes that one assignment. We'll see students jump in there and there's only one button to add things, and they're like, it's very easy. And then, gosh, it only takes one little book of kind of getting to know you, for everyone to get to know the tool, for everyone to get to know each other, and for you to feel more comfortable using it down the road.
Right.
Yeah, I would totally agree with everything that David said. I think the simplicity in Book Creator is what helps people overcome the biggest obstacle. There are several other creation tools that are amazing, but sometimes their user experience, all their menus and all their choices can be really overwhelming to a user. And as a tech coach, I've seen that a lot. But whenever I brought Book Creator into a classroom, I've seen people just getting to creating and it not being a overstimulated experience. I think sometimes, like you said, the choice paralysis piece, when there's too many options, that can be fun for some students, but for some students, that is the opposite of fun. That is now, I have too many options that I can implement and I can't do them all. So now I'm not going to do any of them. And so I think the simplicity is great. I think the ability for teachers to create a template that students can start from is really amazing, because a lot of students need not a blank slate, but like a ladder with a couple steps already put onto the ladder and starting them on the right path. And then I think the biggest thing I've seen as a tech coach is just the anxiety teachers have just trying something new. A lot of, especially teachers that are not very tech savvy, they're afraid they're going to break something, and just reassuring them that there's nothing you can break here. You can't break it. It's going to be okay. Yes, your students will probably pick it up faster than you, but that's just how it is with any tech. So there's nothing to be anxious about. There's lots of resources to support you in implementing it in your classroom. And it's okay to just try something new. And maybe if it doesn't work for you, that's okay too. But trying something, we don't want it to be an anxious process.
Absolutely. Simplicity is the glory of expression. That's how I think I would describe Book Creator, because the more simple it is, the more chance you have to express yourself, because you'll be able to learn quickly and you'll get more time to put your creativity and your problem solving skills into the expression part, wherein you can create the best outcome. And truly, you said about teachers facing time constraints, and like you also talked about teachers feeling scared of trying something new. But then Book Creator gives them that key to explore something new, and teachers can of course learn about the do's and don'ts through videos available, wherein they can make the experience of Book Creator more valuable for students, where they can empower their students to confidently bring their creativity and technological aspect into the classroom. So the students won't have to struggle with learning the technology because it is simple. They will just have to take a few minutes to understand, and then they're there exploring the creative mindset and the growth mindset and putting their expressions down by creating engagement and learning resources and outcomes for themselves. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Right. So it's been absolutely a great discussion with both of you. And before we end today's discussion, I would love to know where we can find you both online and what message you would like to give to the audience that is listening to us right now.
Sure, I'll start. I'll let Katie finish. You can find us online at bookcreator.com, or you can create a free account at app.bookcreator.com. And once you're there, once you get signed up and you're excited about it, if you want to jump into a supportive space of educators who are using Book Creator, you can join our community. And by joining our community, you're just getting access to some curated lessons and ideas right to your inbox. You're also getting access to some exclusive events. We invite you to webinars, meetings. We like to hear what you have to say. You're also tapping into a network of resources. So there's a lot of resource sharing going on. If you want to look for me online, you can find me. I use professionally, I use Twitter or X, whatever you call it still. And you can find me D Hotler. It's actually, if you're watching the video, it's in my name there, but it's DHOTLER. Love to connect.
And you can connect with me on X or Twitter. It's really weird to call it X. But anyway, at KDF, and it's also in my little line bio here. I'm there professionally. Also, you can find me on the same thing on Instagram. And yeah, I would say joining our community and following also the Book Creator app on Instagram is a great place to go and engage with our community. And we'd love to see you there. And if you anytime have questions, you can definitely reach out to David and I, and we're glad to help you with them.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute honor to have you on my podcast today, David and Katie. So, listening to both of you has reminded me of this fact that empowering educators with the right tools and mindset can turn challenges into opportunities, creating spaces where creativity and technology flourish hand in hand. And by blending technology, creativity, and mentorship, we empower educators and students to innovate and shape a brighter and more inclusive future. So thank you so much for sharing your wonderful thoughts. And I'm taking back a lot. I'm sure the audience as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think you're a really great model of everything you just said that you're trying to promote and really showing how students can be innovators. So I'm really honored to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been an honor. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining and listening to this episode. And I'll see you in the next one. Till then, each one, teach 10. Have a nice day.